Welcome to the One Trust podcast experience. This is Zachary Weaver, and with me is Satvik Vasan. Satvik, how are you?
What is up, Zach? Episode 3, we are live on June 19th. Juneteenth. I was just telling you before we went live, there's this insight slash recommendation that I got a couple days ago, which was don't focus on your responsibilities, focus on what makes you feel good. Focus on what makes you feel alive. Might buck the trend a little bit, might trigger some people. And I don't think it was necessarily saying forget your responsibilities. I think it's a little. The reason I bring that up is like I'm feeling that, like I'm feeling my responsibilities feeling burdensome on me right now. And these are things that I have said yes to as an entrepreneur. It's like we have the privilege of potentially building the life that we want and not reporting to anyone. So there's a positive there, but on the flip side of it, sometimes we don't know what to say yes to, or sometimes it's like the decision of whether to take something on, or maybe the regret of having took something on feels like, did I do the right thing? And there's this additional layer that isn't there usually when you're just doing a job, even if you hate it, because it's just like, okay, well, I got to do this and I'm going to get paid. I think another part of it is just not knowing how successful or how viable something might be financially when you're taking some things on as an entrepreneur. So I say that almost as a message to myself to focus on what feels good for me, uh, even at the expense of my responsibilities. So that's just me being vulnerable about how I'm feeling right now.
Thank you for being vulnerable. I resonate a lot with what you're saying, and I feel some of the confusion that you're talking about in myself, right now in my life, and that makes me reflect on the confusion that I think a lot of people feel when they're faced with what you're describing, which is uncertainty about will something be successful? Is something that I'm putting my energy into, is it going to be successful? Is it going to pay off? And I think that's the price of the economic insecurity that
Hmm.
we have. It's like, this is why I'm such a big fan of universal unconditional basic income, because I think that we would, maybe I'm speaking for myself, but I no, I'm speaking from what we see. I think we would see people what they're wanting to do more, and they might be a little more bit more patient about when it will pay off, how it will pay off, if possibly they can, adapt it to pay off in a different way than they originally intended. But I think that resilience comes with economic security, or comes with a degree of it. So yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
just I resonate with what you're saying, and I'm always trying to think of how can we find answers to that confusion that a lot of
That's good. I think as you're saying that, my mind went to how this is not necessarily about solving for how to make people's lives easier necessarily. That could be a byproduct, but it's more so for me, like, feels good for us to build for myself. And like, if things were so certain in my life as I was building my businesses, I don't know if I would have been as resilient. I don't know. Maybe I could have been. Like, I can't speak to an alternate version of me, but I know that I have learned to be more resilient because I've had to deal with certain emotions because of my path. And so I think there's something to be said. I will also say this, that a big part of me learning the resiliency and a big part of me growing from my experience has been the community around me, has been being vulnerable with people around me who also might be on a similar path of exploring their emotions and growing, expanding beyond their past selves. Like, that's helped me. So I don't, this could be a huge topic of like, do we really want? It's kind of like maybe I'm not a parent. You're not either. But like, we want the best for our kids, let's say, and maybe we want them to be safe. And if they fall down, we go over and we tend to their wound, or we help them, like they're crying, we attend to their needs and things like that. And we also want to make sure that they're not overly coddled. And we're not like doing all these things just so that they are safe and protected and have an easier path in their life versus learning the things which can actually help them in the long term. So I want to build these things. I'm compelled to build these things, and I feel like we're supported to do these things. And at the same time, I also believe that making it easier, like our job isn't to just make it easier, because that might be taking away from people's hero's journey that can help them be the best version of themselves in some way. So how can we continue? How can we help them still reach the highest potential of themselves by going through experiences which test, which test them in any and every way, and somehow also build a better world the way we want to.
Yeah, well, that's really powerful, and it's a huge topic. There's so many pieces of it that I'm curious about and excited by. I think one question that comes up for me is, it's almost like we can always make things harder. We can always make things harder for people. I can always make things harder for myself. I can, I put myself in a position where things are harder. I can limit something. But the question I think I'm wrestling with here is human civilization advanced more from making things harder for people or making things easier for people? My feeling, the reason I'm asking that is because I'm like, well, I think we've advanced as a civilization because things have become easier for individuals over time. But I don't know if that's true. That's because that's a very broad question.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me of, have you heard of the book or the concept, The Fourth Turning? No? Okay, so I haven't actually read the book. I've read maybe some passages, and I've talked about it with some friends who shared with me more about the idea. But the concept is that every 20-ish years, the generation in control, flips, or the zeitgeist, changes. And every 4 of these turnings, there's a major upheaval that happens in history. Primarily, they were looking at Western civilization. I believe it could probably be applied to any civilization, but specifically, in American, history, you have, let's say, we start with the American Revolution, 1770, 78, 1780s. You can even throw the French Revolution in there. And then you had, 4 of these turnings, and then you come to the Civil War, another major moment. And you have another 70, 80-ish years, and you come to Great Depression, World War II, and then another 70, 80 years, current times. And one of the concepts that they talk about is that, I think it's related to that quote, hard times build strong men build easier times breed weak men create tough times then create strong men. So it's like that cycle. And maybe that's like a naturally occurring thing. It's like this season. It's like you have a season where people become, maybe mentally or emotionally weaker, not sure. And then that creates an environment which is not so it unfavorable. It creates an unfavorable environment, and then that creates, poverty. Let's say I like the word poverty. It creates poverty, and then poverty gives rise to opportunities for strong men to rise. And I say men, obviously I'm referring to any gender here. And then from there, those men create a strong society or a more abundant society. Again, so that cycle repeats. That's where my mind went to when you were talking about that. That maybe it's a natural progression. And maybe we need those cycles to kind of have evolution to help humanity, level up. It's like each one of these cycles is leveling up our wisdom, our connection to nature, etc. over time. I don't know, thinking out loud about, that's the first thing that came to mind when you were talking about what you just said.
Yeah. So, and so just to clarify, we're in, which phase are we in? We're in the phase where the poverty phase.
Yeah. We're in an unfavorable environment, poverty stricken in many ways, which then gives rise to strong men. So for our civilization to allow these stronger men to rise to the surface, who then lead, and then once somehow like it like peaks in a certain way, after they get in control, and then it dips again, and so there's a cycle. Yeah, I might need to read that book for me to better explain, this concept. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like we are. I mean, I think we both know, we can both sense that we're in a time where there's a lot upheaval happening, and there's a lot of meaningful movements being cultivated. We can look at the world as, glass half empty, glass half full. I think we can feel optimistic about where we're going. We can also feel very pessimistic depending on which information, where we gather our information. I like to think that the stuff that we're working on helps to give people hope, adds to their sense of belonging and trust and conviction about, the belief in the human spirit, all that stuff. And again, this is the first time I'm enunciating it. So I'm just going to see how it sounds. And I also believe that there is something to be said for taking ownership of our human struggle, of our individual, inner journeys. And perhaps our role isn't to make it easier, but to maybe to accelerate that journey for those who are keen on not repeating or being mired in their struggles for longer than they need to be. It's kind of like that metaphor. I might have shared this with you, of like, the first people who's ever scaled a mountain, they had to scale it by hand, they had to climb it. And then maybe they were nice enough to throw a rope down, and the next set of people could, use a rope to climb up. And then maybe they started to, build some steps, and it's easier for the next set of people to go up. And then maybe they started to pave a road so that now all we need to do to get to the top is get in a car and drive up, which is significantly easier, but we maybe get to experience the peak, like they had, but maybe not so much as well, because the struggle of having to get there might have made their experience of life so much richer in some ways that we may not even understand. Like, how did, I don't want to use the word Columbus or use the concept of Columbus, but how did he feel when he came across the new world? Or how did Neil Armstrong feel when he stepped on the moon? I don't know if I could feel that. The first person to have done something. But I also think it's really cool to make certain experiences of life available to more people if they are so willing and ready to take it on. So I think that's a interesting balance that we can maybe look to strike and maybe focus on how can we accelerate that exploration and expansion rather than just simply making it easier. And the easier can be a byproduct. But I think the connection piece and the freedom to explore kind of resonate with me more as something that I don't want others, like, would I have consciously maybe chosen my struggles knowing what I had to go through? Probably not. But looking back, I am grateful for that. So I kind of want that same vibe, in our approach as well. For yeah, I think you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, we want people to be all that they are, the freedom to explore what they want to embody, who they want to be, what they want to do that maybe no one else has done before. And we want people to be able to take on those challenges and reach their product market zeitgeist fit. Speaking of zeitgeist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think the more people who can feel more fulfilled as a result of facing their fears and having a community that helps them to be all that they can be, it's going to naturally create a more beautiful world. And that's what I want. I want a more beautiful world. I want, I'm speaking for myself, but I think, we're in agreement that we want a world which makes us feel uplifted, which makes us feel connected. It makes us feel, it makes us filled with awe. We want those things on a more consistent basis. And, it starts from within. That's my philosophy. And I also know that those things may not have been cultivated unless we were willing to explore the depths, what it means to be a human. It's like that phrase, the tree that reaches up to heaven has roots that go down to hell.
Mm-hmm.
So for us as a humanity, individually and collectively, to be all that we can be, we need to go deep and go within and know that we're supported to do that in ways that I think society today may not be helping us to do. I think there can be more wisdom in our plight as a human civilization. I think there can be more understanding that what we're going through for a reason, for our greatest moments that are yet to come.
Moments yet to come. Thank you, Safra, for building a more beautiful world with me, with all of us.
We're doing it. Yeah, thanks for asking me those questions and allowing me to rant a little bit.
No, thank you for expressing. I'm still finding a way to close the podcast, so because I don't have that way yet. Thank you all for listening. Thank you again, Safra.
We'll get there in terms of closing this seamlessly. We might have some mic drop moments that we just say, all right, that's it. Or we might have some music to tune it out. Thanks for doing this with me, Zach. Until next week.
Until next week, Safra.
Take care.